Questions, people?
Sir, can you explain a Hardy-Weinberg principle?
Yes, Jasola, we talked about Hardy-Weinberg principle yesterday, and many of you find a problem in Hardy-Weinberg principle. So I think Ellen was there in last class, right, Ellen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, would you like to take this as an opportunity to begin with Hardy-Weinberg principle, and then if something is left, I will explain.
Yes, sir. So then the Hardy-Weinberg principle it states.
Wait.
Like,
Let me. Yeah.
okay, sure.
What was that? Yes.
Yes, sir. So it states it talks about the allelic frequency. So we have the dominant gene and the recessive gene. So we take the dominant gene as capital P and the recessive gene as Q. So we use this in the equation P square plus 2PQ plus Q square equals 1. So here P square will be equal to the capital homozygous dominant. PQ would be the heterozygous gene, and Q square would be the homozygous recessive gene. So when you add all these, get 1, and we use this in equations to find out the frequency of specific ones.
Yeah. Yes, and also, what about this? So the formula, and where does it? How to come to it? Like you talked about the formula, but how does this formula come into existence?
Like how much like how we use it in questions or like
Yeah, like I mean, so this P is for
oh like that. Okay, then
yeah.
we take
Yeah.
capital T as P. So when multiply T and T, it'll become P square. And if you were to take T
So
as
we are not multiplying here. So what's happening? What is this TT, small TT? What are these conditions?
no, I don't understand the question. Like
So what is this P square, the origin of the P square? What is this capital T and capital T?
there's a dominant allele.
Yes. So this one capital T is from mother, this one capital T is from father. They are representing two chromosomes carrying these two alleles,
Okay.
right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So just in biology context, yeah, I just wanted you to explain Jasola in some biological context.
Okay, so we take one P from the father and one P from the mother, and then multiply both of those and you get P square. The same goes for Q square. And for the case of small t and capital T, we get two PQ because there are two cases. We have one as small t capital T and other as capital T small t. In math, it'll be the same, but in biology, both of them are different. So we get two PQ.
Correct. Is it clear to you, Jasola?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So just to add on to it, so Hardy-Weinberg principle, it talks about a genetic equilibrium condition. Okay. And in the last class, we did a question specifically to understand that, which was testing. So let me go to the question again, and I think Ellen can. Okay, so what are the assumptions that we make for a population to be in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? So it says that the allele frequencies in a given population are always stable and remains constant from one generation to another. So whatever is the total number of alleles or the frequency of that allele, capital T or a small t, to be expressed in that population, it remains constant. In other simple words, it means that the gene pool, which is the total genes along with their alleles, is constant in a population. Okay. And even to put it in one line simply, sum total of all allelic frequencies is 1. Okay. Is it clear, everyone? Make sense? Jasola, does it make sense? So this formula, so in any given population, if there is a gene that is controlled by two alleles, let's say the gene is of height, character is height, and it is controlled by two alleles, capital T and small t. These are the only possibilities that can come in any generation, Saifullah, right? Whether we are studying the parents, the F1, the F2, do you understand, Saifullah, that these are the only possibilities that can be there? Capital T, capital T, capital small t, and a capital T, small t, right?
Sir, can you explain what you just said? I got disconnected.
Yeah, I was saying that let's start with one character. Let's say the character is height, and the gene for height is controlled by two alleles. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So what will be those two alleles?
It could be capital D, or capital T,
No,
small
the
t,
two
small t.
alleles, those are not alleles.
Capital T and small t.
Yes, these are two alleles, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So these two alleles, in what frequency they can be expressed in any population in any generation? So we know that diploid organisms like us have two copies of every gene, right? Which means we have two alleles for every gene. So taking a diploid organism as an example, these are the only possibilities of expression of these alleles, right?
Yes, sir.
Now in what frequency they can be um, be present, or they can be seen? So let's say the frequency of capital T is given by P. You can take any um, consonant, any alphabet you can assign as a frequency. So that is P. And let's assume the frequency of small t in any population is Q. So when this condition arises, capital T, the total frequency become P square because both are coming together. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And if this condition arises, the total frequency becomes Q square.
Yes, sir.
And if capital T, small t comes up, the total frequency will become 2 into PQ, because there are two ways by which it can arise. If the small t comes from the mother and the capital T comes from the father, and when the capital T comes from the mother and the small t comes from the father. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So we will take 2 P, because one is P, one is Q, so 2 PQ. So these three are the frequency which are possible, and the sum total of all the frequencies is 1. So P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1. And it looks like a mathematical formula where it is A square plus 2AB plus B square is equal to A plus B ka whole square. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everyone, is it clear? Everyone, is it clear? Yes, no.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other doubt, Safula?
No, sir.
No? Okay, very well. So let us go and take some questions which you all can solve. Let me see if we can. So one question that we did exactly on this concept in the last class. Let's discuss that first. So Alan was there in the last class. me open this. Okay, by the time I'm coming to that. Anyone has any other doubts from this concept? Yes, and then coming to the question was based on this. What factors can affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? So Alan, would you like to just revise this quickly? What 5 factors can affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? Are you there, Alan? Or Mamuna? Mamuna, would you like to? Anyone? Alan, Mamuna, Saifullah? Just a quick revision of what are the factors that affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. See, if few people will do it, it's better.
Yes, I can try, sir.
Yes, Saifullah. Good.
Like gene migration, if a species in one population migrates to a population of some kind of other species, but same kind, like same kind of bird, which is isolated from like population B, migrates to population B and mates, like its genes will be introduced into newer generations of population B. That is gene migration.
Great. So that is one, right? How is gene migration different from genetic drift then? Because in both there is something moving from one place to, like, some changes happening in one direction. So is gene flow or gene migration same as genetic drift? Saifullah?
No, so genetic drift is like suddenly that happens in a population, maybe due to mutations and all.
Mutations. Okay. So mutations do happen like suddenly means in one generation, but that is mutation a right way to define genetic drift? Alan or Mamuna? Anyone?
So genetic drift happens by chance, whereas mutation happens by with time it just happens mutation with the radiation and on the gene migration.
But mutation is also a random event, right? Remember?
Mutation is a one step process, whereas genetic drift like is that the difference?
Yeah, mutation is also a chance, like it's a random event. It can happen by just, even in humans at many given times, mutation can happen due to UV radiation, right? But only those mutations matter that go to the germ cell because they will be passed on. All mutations do not pass on to the next generation, right? So if a mutation happened in, let's say, my skin cell, will it affect my generations? No, right?
Okay, so
Because
genetic drift, yes, genetic drift affects the genes, whereas mutation affects just the phenotypical feature from the outside.
no, genetic drift has nothing to do with genes, for that matter. You know, a genetic drift is just change in allele frequency. Okay, like in gene flow happens, but this is suddenly. For example, remember we talked about, let's say there are two kind of beetles that are living in a forest. Okay, so gene flow is when slowly gene one kind of beetles are added to a new population and lost from the old population. But genetic drift is like, let's say suddenly there is a fire in the jungle, or there are big elephants that stampeded that region of the jungle. Okay, due to which let's say 90% of the beetles just died within a few minutes or hours. And the 10% that survived, most of them were red beetles. Before that, let's say the majority were green beetle. But somehow the allele frequency just shifted in the opposite direction, and just by sheer chance. No logic of genes or mutations or genetics involved. Do you understand, Alan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then these 3 points, because that's why mutation, so gene migration, genetic drift, mutation, genetic recombination, and natural selection, they're all different concepts, but together all affect the Hardy-Weinberg principle. So gene migration and genetic drift is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So Saifullah, would you like to talk about mutations, genetic recombination, and natural selection? Anything that you remember? I remember I dictated you people things, so it must be in your notes. Can you please refer? You can take some time if you want. Ellen, you also. I want to know how these 3 things, mutations, genetic recombination, and natural selection, first, what they are. Second, how do you think they affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? So please go back to your notes. And anyone who's ready can let me know. Did you people figured out or found the notes? Are you studying? Ellen, Mamuna, and Saifullah? So take these sessions as a uh, study sessions, okay? Please ask me, because don't just rely on me to initiate discussions in these, because I will just think what I am thinking is important, and it may be repetitive, and many things that you actually have doubts on might be skipped or not paid attention to. So these classes are for you this month. Okay, so by covering mutation, genetic recombination, and natural selection, I think I'll be covering a lot of major important points, but this is again coming from me. So like Saifullah initiated with this, let's ask more doubts and problems. So who's going to speak about mutations first? Anyone who would like to volunteer, who think that they have real understood based on our class, their notes? Who would like to initiate about mutations? What are they and how do they affect Hardy-Weinberg principle? Okay, so let's start with Mamuna, are you there? Can we talk about mutations? Did you read? Or you need some more time?
Sir, more 2 minutes.
2 more minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's say Memuna will talk about mutations. Ellen, how about you talk about genetic recombination, and then Saifullah talks about natural selection? Is it okay?
So, but I joined after this class, so I don't really have notes of this.
Okay, so genetic recombination. Okay, so let's do one thing. So Saifullah, will you talk about genetic recombination then? And I will talk about natural selection then. Cool, in the end, so that Ellen also gets to know all these three. Saifullah, are you there? Can you hear me, Saifullah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so which one? So let me allow you to choose. Which one would you like to talk about? Natural selection or genetic recombination?
So I will go for genetic recombination.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So first Mamuna, then you, and then I'll talk about natural selection. Okay. So this way Alan will get to know all the three. And since he missed the classes, it will be a good revision for him. Okay, everyone? Some teamwork. Okay, Mamuna, whenever you are ready, we'll go with you first. Cool?
Okay, sir.
Amuna, let's begin. I think so. Don't hesitate or don't worry that you will, if what if you will miss something, things like that. Okay, I will help you through the way, but I want you to make the first move. Let's talk about mutations.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So it's basically like a change in the DNA sequence of an organism, which uh, which in further results in like DNA replication due to during cell division, exposure to mutagens.
Mm-hmm. So you used a good, so very good. That's exactly. So my question is, do you think mutations have a like they have a direction? Are they directional or they are just random? What do you think? Are you there, Memuna?
Yes, sir.
So do you think that mutation is directional, like cells can do it in a controlled manner for their benefit, or organisms can control it for their benefit, or is it just random a process?
It's a random process.
Random, right? So how do we figure out if it's a random process? Why do we say that mutation leads to evolution? It helps in evolution. It helps organisms become better at something or adapt to their environment. Is this the only thing that is happening, or there is something that we are forgetting is also happening, but we don't talk about it in the books or that much? Anyone would like to? So mutations are, as you correctly said, they are random. Okay, and it's also true that they help in evolution. But what happens is mutations are of all sorts. Most of the mutations, as I have already told you, are deleterious. Okay, so majority of mutations are dangerous or not good for an organism. Okay, deleterious. For example, there is a mutation in humans which leads to sickle cell anemia. So mostly they cause disease, disorders, cancers, you know, these kind of things. So these will not be passed on because the organism will die. Correct? Most of the mutations that happen in our organism makes the organism die or perish. Only some mutations sometime that happens gives the organism an advantage. Okay, this is a random process, but only those mutations which are advantageous will be passed on to the next generation, because these organisms will benefit from the mutation and will continue to give rise to more progenies. Do you understand, everyone? If a mutation is advantageous, then only it will be passed on. No, if it is deleterious, it will kill the parent itself. The parents won't be able to pass on to the kids. Do you understand? Ellen, Mamuna, Cephala.
Yes.
So most of the times, or as a disorder, if mutations gets passed on, they will again cause problem in the next generation. So that generation also will not survive, because in general in nature only humans are capable of living with mutations or treating disorders or helping a person live with some disease or disorder through medicinal science. That is what we have. It is against the natural selection process. But natural selection process only allows the best to survive. If mutations work in your favor, it will be passed on, you will survive. So mutations are not directional, but they always always the advantageous mutations helps in evolution. Is it? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, Memuna. So
Yes,
complete,
sir.
yeah, complete your statements about this.
Your hand up, Mr. About it.
That's it. Okay, cool. So Cephala, what's your take on genetic recombination?
Yes, like genetic recombination is the shuffling of genes during crossing over. This takes place, as we know, crossing over takes place in meiosis one during packaging stage, packaging one stage, in which two non-sister chromatids interchange a segment of their uh,
Mm-hmm.
material during this
Mm-hmm.
stage, which leads to some variations during
Mm-hmm.
through generations.
Mm-hmm. Correct. That's correct. So when you are saying non-sister chromatids, what do we mean by non-sister chromatids? Probably Alan will also be having this doubt. So Alan, you can also cross question. Okay. So remember, this is a study session kind of a discussion we are having. So what are non-sister chromatids? Would you like to explain it a little, Saifullah?
Yes, like there is a tetrad, right, where two non-sister chromatids are held together at chrismatas sites. Um,
Chiasmata, you mean?
yes, chrismata, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, so, so you mean to say? Let me just elaborate on Saifullah's point for Alan. So Saifullah is saying that for every chromosome, um, we have two copies, right? One comes from the mother, and the other comes from the father, right? So these two copies, which comes from the mother and the father, for every chromosome are called homologous chromosomes, right? Because for chromosome 1 there is one coming from mother, one coming from father. So these homologous chromosomes, let me use, um, where did we study that? In molecular or in genetics? I think in genetics we did recombination here, right? I think before that. Yep. Yep. So you all can see that. Alan, can you see this diagram?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what Saifullah wants to say is that this chromosome in red and this chromosome in blue are two homologous chromosomes, one coming from the mother, the other coming from the father. Both are the same chromosomes, chromosome 1, 2, or whatever. So the genes that will be present on these chromosomes will also be the same genes, right? And in the same order. Is that correct, Saifullah, or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So remember, so what do we tell, what do we call the location at which any gene is present? So the location of a gene or a allele on a chromosome is
Locus.
locus. So what I have marked here in green, yellow, black, and this blue are locus. Okay. So these locus are where this allele for height character is present, capital T. Okay. So in the same chromosome, when there are two chromatids formed, they are formed through replication. That is what Saifullah was trying to say. And these two are called sister chromatids because they are technically the same. Correct, Saifullah?
Yes, sir.
So which ones will be the non-sister chromatids, Saifullah?
The red and blue one.
Yes. One chromatid from the red chromosome and the other chromatid from the blue chromosome. Correct? And the chiasmata that he was talking about is where the non-sister chromatids overlap and there is exchange of genetic material. And because of which, when the exchange happens, you will see that there is now variation. How there is variation? Pay attention. So suppose this chromosome from the father contained small t and small y and also small r alleles. From the mother it contained capital T, capital Y and capital R as alleles. After crossing over, this one chromatid now contains small t, small y, but capital R. So it is a new combination, right? You understand, Alan?
Yes, sir.
So here we will say that the chromatids have recombined. Re means again. So they broke up at this point when they formed chiasmata and get attached to the different chromosome. One part of this went here and one part of this came here, and they recombined to form new variations which were not present in the parents. That's why it is called recombinant chromatids. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Now going back to natural, yes, Saifullah, would you like to say anything else or you're done?
I'm done, sir.
Okay, great. So let me take natural selection then. So discussing all of the above things, you realized that because of genetic recombination or mutations, there are variations that come among the offsprings. Now, natural selection, as the word tells you, nature selects. It does the selection. Now, for every selection, there has to be a criteria. For example, for your selection in a medical college, what is the criteria? That you score a certain threshold of marks in an entrance examination, correct? Yeah, that is the
Yes, sir.
criteria. So can I call that criteria as a selection criteria?
Yes.
Yes, right? So in nature also there are selection criteria that emerge which were not present before. So just like in a student's life, so till you are in school, you are giving school examinations, there is the selection criteria are different. Okay, to go from one standard to another, you need to go beyond a certain criteria threshold, and if you go beyond that, if you pass or graduate in every subject with the marks, the minimum marks that is required, if you obtain above that, you go to the next standard. Okay, but the criteria, the difficulty changes and it emerges when you are in ninth standard. It emerges with respect to the ninth. In nature, so selection pressures in nature are different. For example, it could be the one, for example, let's take an example of tigers in a jungle, and there are deers. So for deers, the selection pressure is the ones which will be able to protect themselves by running better or by camouflaging better or by eating faster and being very alert while they are eating, etc., etc., are selected by nature to to form new offsprings and go to the next generation. The ones which are weaker, let's say a deer is slightly weak with legs or has a injury in the leg and is limping, will that deer be able to cross the threshold, or is a weak malnutritioned deer, or the deer has a mutation due to which the deer cannot hear or see properly? That can happen in animals also, right? Humans also have inborn problems or problems that they acquire after birth, in which their auditory and visual capabilities decline, right? So if the same happens in an animal, do you think that animal is fit to be selected by nature?
No.
No. So it will perish, right? It will be caught and killed and eaten up by the predators. So natural selection can be anything. For a bacteria, it could be antibiotic selection in nature. So in nature also it happens. For a virus and a host interaction, it could be for a virus, it could be the selection based on how well the virus can replicate itself inside the host. For a host, the selection is based on how well the immune system of the host can fight with the virus. So all these things comes under natural selection. For a bird population like Darwin finches, so if on an island suddenly the food resources change drastically, let's say, so in the beginning there were lots of seeds that the birds can eat. Now let's say because of drought or some conditions, plants are not too much, they're not producing enough seeds, but there are insects that have come up. So now the pressure has changed from eating seeds to eating insects. So over the course of time, which could be thousands of generations, the one which will adapt better to eat insects will be selected by nature. Yes or no?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Do you understand? Does it make sense to you? All of you? Does this thing make sense at all or not?
Yes, it does.
It does, right? So that's called natural selection. Okay. So based on any natural selection pressure, the way an organism adapts, it could be through a mutation, it could be through generating variations through genetic recombination, it could be simply through genetic drift or migration of the gene slowly over time that you get selected by nature. Okay. And they affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So Mamona, Ellen, and Cephala, any further doubts, or shall we go and do some questions?
And sir, can you explain founding effect?
Founder's effect. Okay. Yeah, I can. Cool. Let's go with founder effect. This one, right below, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is a founder? Founder is anyone who founded that. So there are founders of institutions, founders of, you know, organization, etc. So due to above 5 reasons, there is change in the genetic makeup or allele frequency. So sometimes the change in the allele frequency is so different that the two populations that are changing, they change so much from each other that they become two different species. Okay. So new species are formed from the pre-existing species by changes in their alleles, in their genes. Is it clear, Ellen and Cephala, Mamno?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So there was just one species, let's say ancestors of elephants. They did not have long tusks and also did not have very long trunk. But over time, multiple species started coming, some with shorter trunks, some with longer trunks. And the longer trunks one were better to survive. So they survived, the others got extinct. But to begin with, the originally drifted population, the original population that drifted, it becomes the founder population because that was the population from which other species started coming up. Speciation started, it began. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the founders from which these species came up will be the found, and this event through which speciation happens will be the founder effect. So you have to write exactly what I've written here. Sometimes the change in allele frequency is so different that a new species is formed from a new population. And the originally drifted population becomes the founder. And this kind of mechanism or effect is called a founder effect. Okay. And speciation is simply the process of emerging of new species from pre-existing species through evolution. Okay, make sense? Everyone, does it make sense? Any more doubts? Anyone has any more doubts? Okay, so if there are no doubts, let me share the other screen. So I think we have to spend some time today on evolution only because there are doubts by Saifullah in general. Saifullah, with respect to the Hardy-Weinberg principle, I think we did a question in the last class. Yes. Can you read question number 63, Saifullah?
Yes. In a random mating population in equilibrium, which one of the following brings about a change in gene frequency in a non-directional manner?
Yeah. So they basically it is associated with the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, and every one of you will write the right answer in the chat quickly. What do you think is the right answer? Write it in the chat. Just the option will do. Yes, Saifullah, that is a correct option. Remember, in a non-directional manner. Good, Saifullah. So I think you understand the concept, right? Others? Mamuna? Mamuna, we are waiting for your answer. Yes, Mamuna, that is correct. Okay, so random drift, as I told you, it is a chance event. It can happen in any direction. So that is the because mutations I told you, those are also randoms, but only the ones which will work for the betterment or for the advantage of the population will be selected. The others won't be because the organism will die. Okay, very good. Okay, so Saifullah, let's do a few more questions on this. Okay, concept. Okay, we have Alan also joining in. Alan, are you there? Can you Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to give answer to question 63? So Saifullah and Mamuna has given their answers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just yeah. Please read and give your answer. Saifullah, do you understand this concept?
Yes, sir.
There's no doubt, right? Yes, Ellen. That's correct. Correct answer. Okay. So question number 93. Will you read, Ellen? Saifullah read the last question. Ellen, would you like to read question 93?
Yes, sir. Phenomenon of industrial maintenance demonstrates geographical isolation, reproductive isolation, natural selection, and induced mutation.
Yep. That's correct in option, Ellen. Very good.
So which one, sir? 93 or 94?
93. Yes, Saifullah, that is correct answer. Namuna, we are waiting for your answer. Yes, Mamuna, that's correct. An answer. Very good. Okay, so another question that I have. Yes. Question number 99. We talked about Darwin, finches, and natural selection just now. So, Saifullah, will you read question 99? It's an important question from Darwin's finches.
Yes, sir. The diversity in the type of beaks of finches adapted in to different feeding habits on the Galapagos Islands
Yeah,
has
Galapagos.
yes, as observed by Darwin provides evidence for.
So read the options carefully. You know the meaning of inter and intra, all of you, right? Hello, am I audible, people? I think you cannot see the screen, right? That's what I was asking.
No,
Yes,
sir,
sir,
we
we
can't.
can't.
You can't, right? Just let me share it again. I think it crashed. Okay, can you see it now again? Yeah. Ellen, Mamuna, Saifullah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So which one do you think is the right? Yes. Yes, Cephala. Correct. Oh, so you gave the same answer, right? Last time for this question only. Question
Yes,
99,
sir.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is the correct answer. Mamuna, what's your answer? I think I've not received Mamuna's answer. I've received Ellen and Cephala's answer. Both Ellen and Cephala are correct. So Darwin was talking about what? No. So it is not intraspecific competition, Mamuna. Remember, he said that on different parts of the island. So competition would have been if all these birds would have been on the same island competing for the same food. But that was not the point. The point was they were not competing. They were changing because now different foods were available. Correct? So A or B could not be the answer. Intra means within the species, inter means between two species, but both are not the answer. Either it is intraspecific variations or C, origin of species by natural selection. So what do you think Darwin provides an evidence for through the finches? Mamuna. So I have narrowed down the options for you. It is C, origin of species by natural selection. Competition could not be the answer because there was no, Darwin did not talk about, or he did not use it as a evidence for competition. And it was obvious that there is no competition between these different finches. They were actually feeding on different foods. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, so we'll take one last question, which is 104. Again, a concept, a basic fundamental concept about evolutionary convergence. So who's going to read? Ellen, would you read the last question for today?
Evolutionary convergence is characterized by development of dissimilar characteristics in closely related groups, development of a common set of characteristics in groups of different ancestry, development of characteristics by random mating, development of common characteristics in different groups.
Your answer, people? Yes, Mamuna, that is correct answer. I hope you understand this question, right? Is there any doubt that you want to discuss about this question? Mamuna?
No, sir.
Great. Ellen and Cephala. Correct answer, Ellen. Good. Okay, good, Cephala. So, all of you, this is the right answer. Development of a common set of characteristic. Option B is correct. So, evolutionary convergence simply means that organisms from different organisms converge to similar function in evolution. So it is a development of a common set of characteristics in groups of different ancestry. Okay, perfect. So I think with this we will finish evolution. We have spent 2 classes on this. On genetics and evolution we have spent more than 3 classes. So it was a major important part, but it's also important for us to pay attention to biotechnology. So next class onwards it will be biotechnology, which also could be the like we'll see of the revision classes, of the major revision classes, how many more we can hold. But next weekend